Welcome to the Rhodes Jackson Project. I'm Skyeler.
And I'm James.
And today we're going to be covering the very present danger of coronavirus and the many theories and misinformation surrounding it. James?
We'll be going over a lot of things today. First, I'm going to be interviewing one skeptic, Jesse Miles Walker, as well as Skyeler's dad, a member of Corona Information Group.
Yes, and I'm going to be interviewing a former lab assistant, also known as Gabby, my girlfriend, and a anonymous AT&T worker who's had first-hand contact and experience with 5G and the current rollout of those plans. So the goal of today is to get to the bottom of these issues that are so wrapped up in mystery and hidden from us, as the legacy media doesn't cover them.
We ultimately just wish to get information out there. What you choose to believe is up to you, but we feel the evidence we find and display to y'all will speak for itself.
Coronavirus is not only a modern problem. There have been pandemics in the past, and there will be again in the future. However, with anything as large as a global pandemic, conspiracies arise. 5G is a tired topic, but has once again risen in popularity as the strange and dubious handling of this virus by world governments has been brought into question. The story will develop as we uncover the truth.
Alright guys, what's up? I'm here with Jesse Miles Walker, local conspiracy theorist. Now Jesse, tell us why you believe that coronavirus is caused by 5G.
So when I introduce this topic, I like to bring up the history of human diseases and how they've sort of been placed throughout like the time periods. Wuhan is it's so-called the first blanketed 5G city, and is it a coincidence that it's the ground point zero? I don't think so. I don't believe in coincidences.
No, I find it very interesting. You don't mind me asking. Well, you're stating that coronavirus itself isn't an actual disease, but it's caused by 5G, period. So there's no real way to trace 5G to back to it. It's just essentially you have symptoms and you die.
People are so with any disease, obviously, it's characterized by its symptoms, just overall, and maybe some like biological background. But in this case, with this sort of being a virus like so-called contagion, what we really base it off of is its symptoms basically, and the biggest thing that has come out of this coronavirus is severe acute respiratory syndrome.
So SARS.
Yeah, which can be caused by many things.
I feel as if that's just not enough information to go off of, honestly. With that being the case, you also have people in like Oklahoma and Wyoming who have contracted the coronavirus, as well as people in Africa. Mm-hmm. So when I look at it, it doesn't make that much sense for me to believe that, caused by 5G. We have these people in these more or less isolated areas who have nothing to do with 5G catching the virus.
This virus was created technically through cause and effect artificially. The thing about 5G, its frequency ranges are in the high, it can be in the high 60s of the gigahertz, gigahertz in frequency, and basically at that frequency, these electromagnetic waves can attach to oxygen molecules, and obviously we breathe air, so the only effect is we're basically taking this attached frequency and this molecule, and we're respiring with this. With any electromagnetic wave, there is a possibility that you can be poisoned by it, depending on its strength, its frequency, its volume, basically, how much you're being affected by in one area. But I use a microwave all day, or every day in my house, and I stand face to the door of the microwave. Well, a big thing about microwaves, it has a door, and its purpose to keep those microwaves contained. And then some people may say, oh, there's a big crack in my microwave. Well, okay, giving you the best case scenario, some electromagnetic frequencies are being released through that crack. But you're not really being exposed to as much harm as, let's say, if you cut off maybe like a finger, or you took like a biological sample, you put it inside the microwave, and it heats up like anything else, because that's where the heat comes from. It's radiation. So yes, this can damage cells, and this can cause mutations, cancer. If obviously with UV that happens, skin cancer, very easy to contract. 5G attaching in these large quantities. We have like 20,000 satellites, maybe it's somewhere between 10 to 20,000 satellite, maybe in like groups and stuff out in our orbit, all pinpointing locations, blanketing certain areas, and we're respiring with these attached molecules. We could possibly be getting poisoned, and our cells could be reacting to a point where they mutate, and then what happens is they become sort of aggressive, and they can become a virus.
We do have the electromagnetic spectrum and things like that when we have our microwaves and things like that affect us. But when we go in for an X-ray, that's what I would immediately think of too. Mm-hmm. Our mouths are covered when we take up an X-ray. It's a much stronger radiation. It requires me to wear a lead thing on my stomach, so I don't even get affected by it. So if that's the case, even if I don't take that many X-rays, you think I have more adverse side effects because an X-ray is much higher up on the electromagnetic spectrum. If I have 5 X-rays a year, which I do, or I did when I broke my arm, when I have had coronavirus-like symptoms by then?
It can in certain patients that actually have radiation poisoning. Obviously, excessive radiation can just cause problems and inflicted tumors and stuff like that. But sure, let's give you the case: 5 X-rays per year. These X-rays in these medical institutes, they're designed to exactly just do the opposite of harming you. They're just used for radioactive imaging, and with imaging, it's like light. But X-rays can obviously go through things, so it's just enough power to go past whatever it's trying to go past and bounce off of whatever is at the other end. You know what I mean? And it's just going to come right back. So it doesn't really linger within whatever it's passing through, and it doesn't have enough time basically to attach to anything. It's a very fast rays, not enough volume to really cause a lot of radiation density, so that doesn't really do much.
But wasn't if a reaction going to happen, wouldn't it happen automatically though? Like as soon as it passes through, wouldn't that occur? Such as when we get certain things like NaCl, that's a reaction, stuff like that. As soon as you make contact with something, the reaction occurs. No matter for how long you make contact with it, it would occur. So I guess my thing is, if the X-ray radiation were to pass through an air molecule, at that point it's going to automatically attach itself to it. It shouldn't really matter for how long it's going to be connected to it. And I guess I also have a question on the fact of how it is connecting to it, because I'm aware of how you have things such as valence electrons, and that's how connections happen. But you're just moving basically a ray or something. There's no real electrons for you to actually add on to it. You could make them separate, and that's true. But I don't see how you would make them attach on something, because there's nothing for it to physically attach to.
Like the actual mobile network for this example. Let's say you have a 5G phone, or everyone has, the most up-to-date generation 5G. You've got satellites running 24/7 every day, no chance of them ever stopping, and you've got everything pinging very fast. Let's say average ping is around 60 milliseconds. So you've got a path up and back 60 milliseconds, so 30 milliseconds travel time. But going on many devices all at once, every day, all day, it's going to have a lot of volume. It's just going to have a lot of presence, is what I mean. X-rays are they're not basically attached. They're not. They don't have a presence long enough in whatever environment they're used for that to happen. People have experimented with X-rays to the point where they're very heavily present within, like, let's say a structure like a glass jar or something. Yes, I'm pretty sure they can attach to things, and I mean that's what enough X-rays will be deadly. Yeah, it's just because they can attach easily. They can go through your skin though, and attach to your cells and other proteins and everything. And as far as 5G goes, let's say like average 60 gigahertz frequency. The important thing is it is enough to attach. When you get enough frequency to attach, the only parameter just I guess determining if it will be a severe problem is how long it's being presented to this environment, and obviously with 5G all the time.
Well, you're right. It is. Main thing is radio waves are on lower frequencies no matter what. Mm-hmm. And to go back to the idea of a microwave example, even though it's not permeating through the microwave, there's still air within that microwave. I can have it on for an hour, 99 minutes, 10 minutes, doesn't really matter. But the air comes out and I'm not automatically getting sick after. Mm-hmm. So if that's just cycling through the same air no matter what, and I don't have adverse effects putting it on there for God knows how long, then why is it that something that's lower on the wave frequency is able to attach itself to air when something higher up, much higher up, isn't able to? And also to go back, you mentioned that when X-rays is attaching itself to our cells, it's not really attaching itself, it's more so causing a response in the cell to go awry.
Yeah. Because
when that happens, its cell door is repeating itself and not saying, wait, don't repeat, keep multiplying, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But
initiating the replication.
Yeah, but air and other molecules like that, non-organic molecules or non-living molecules at that point don't have those issues.
I definitely do think that it is something that can be spread. I think it's in contagion, but I don't think it's I think in reality, with how it's being spread and all that, I think what's really happening is, I'm trying to say that there has been this blanketed lie that the media has put over this virus, and I think that it has been improperly identified. It has been improperly responded to, especially in the medical community. Actually, I'd like to talk about that. As far as severe acute respiratory system, and actually the identification of the coronavirus through genetic sample tests and all that, it's all severely outdated. Go as far back as far as the the 80s. Just because this is a new thing. This is a new thing. Coronavirus is a new thing. That's where corona comes from. So if we have a new virus, then there should be a new way to identify it.
But isn't coronavirus just existed beforehand? So you can solve coronavirus. You can kill it with Lysol.
Yeah, with Lysol. Yeah. So
would it make sense for you to do the same test you could do to identify beforehand if it's a new strand?
Yeah. The thing though is, if this virus is so easily destroyed by Lysol, you're saying like this was a prior thing. I think the name coronavirus is improperly labeled on this new strand, so to speak, or this new type of disease. So why do we have to make all of these precautions, and why is everything so more severe this time around? Things don't evolve that fast.
So this is a tangent on my side, but how do you feel about the fact that influenza is on our Lysol, things like that, and there'll be major influenza outbreaks that we have that? I feel it's the same sort of strand where, yes, even though it has the same host DNA, essentially, the amount of differences in it makes it harder for us to kill and deal with. Mm-hmm. That'll be the same thing for coronavirus, would it not?
Well, the thing about influenza is about 30,000 people globally die from influenza. Everyone knows influenza is widespread. You know, everyone's on it every year. We have vaccines for it. That's why, you know, relatively with modern medicine, that number is way lower than it would be without the vaccines and all of that, obviously. But let's say, I mean, they're not really major compared to coronavirus. I haven't really done research on the prior coronavirus, but I know it wasn't this big. It definitely wasn't even. It was nothing like influenza. I mean, we're barely we've heard of coronavirus and all that, but not like we've heard of like earlier flu. Like we just know flu. It has been a word used since, you know, forever in the medicine community and just the medical community.
I feel like this comes down to us not being as prepared for it, because you look at how Native Americans in history reacted to them being introduced to new pathogens that killed them off, that the settlers themselves were okay with. Mm-hmm. Most of humanity wasn't prepared for whatever caused a mutation within the coronavirus, and that's what's making it take off so fast. For whatever mutation of it is. But that's that's not uncommon, because with the Black Plague and things like that, that's happened. Yeah. So when I look down and I think about it, I truly feel as if it's not a matter of there being a misinformation or things like that. It's a matter of us being unprepared, and ultimately nature taking its course in a way. Because it makes more sense for me to say that humanity just got fucked over by coronavirus than it was to say that niggas at AT&T are sitting down and plotting to kill out everybody in Wuhan.
Yes. I just believe that these these companies are trying to advance. Well, here I'll bring up this sort of correlation again. I don't believe in coincidences. We're working, you know, they're working on 5G. Wuhan, first blanketed city. That's just a huge coincidence. You know, like why is that the case? Why is Wuhan the first blanketed city in 5G? Who the fuck hears about Wuhan?
Well, Wuhan's also home of the biggest black market food trade and stuff like that as well. There's a lot of major black market food trading and what is it? I believe the wet markets, what they refer to them as, that occurs in Wuhan. And they were able to trace back the coronavirus that originally occurred to bats. They were able to trace it back to there. So if people in China and Wuhan eat bats, it's more likely that a city with a major amount of wet markets who happens to be 5G cause the spread from a bat to a human than it would be free to sit down and say that a city who happens to have a lot of wet markets and is the first big city of 5G will be the first one to have coronavirus, because there's other cities in the world that have 5Gs as well. And they don't have any symptoms like that.
Here's the big issue with the whole bat thing. Bats are mammals.
Yes, they are.
They respirate just like we do.
Yes, they are.
Yes. This is a respiratory-based contagion. Then why did it result from humans eating bats and not sharing the same air or locations with them?
Because of the way we ingest the bacteria and things like that, we're getting it more firsthand. It's easier for a virus to mutate or adapt to human cells once it's fully been intaken of. So when we eat food, it circulates through our system at that point. But if I just breathe in, it goes through my lungs, and that's where it stops at. Essentially, it pushes it right back out.
That's not how it works. My nigga, you ever play Inc? You mentioned how you know, like eating the bats and all that. Well, that's just not how viruses work. For example, a virus usually, through its evolution and how it changes throughout time, it will stick to its transmission pattern. So, you know, respiratory will follow by air, ingestion will follow by just chemical digestion within the body, or like through the blood or something. So it doesn't really make sense that eating bats would lead to a respiratory illness.
Well, the thing about it is, in plaguing as well, one of the ways you're able to spread illness is through livestock, and that's by actually consuming the animal. So if you were to consume a bat that was having respiratory issues, we don't follow bats with their breathing problems. Mm-hmm. So if a bat was having the same similar symptoms as humans were having, they didn't notice, they ate the bat. Now you have blood to blood connection. which is what you would assume would happen, and now it's being spread. Of course, you would be like, well, what about air now? Now it's being spread through respiratory. But now, it's not also not uncommon for things like that to happen as well. Because a lot of times you can mutate. Viruses mutate all the time. Originally, it was only attacking the respiratory system, but now it's attacking the stomach and things like that as well. So it's not uncommon for a virus to mutate as it goes along, as it's getting more genetic makeup to add to its own, essentially, which will cause it to do those different forms of stress like that. And also keep in the fact that if you're sneezing out, you're essentially now pushing out as well anyway. You're now spitting out the molecules, the air droplets, stuff like that, that carry the virus too.
Yeah.
So now it's in the air, it goes in somebody else. So it's not even really technically changing forms of transmutation. It's just now having easier time to spread to humans.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Let's talk about. Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the death tolls.
Yeah. As far as I know, I believe this is up to date. About 6% of like 2 million cases have died. Around a quarter of 2 million have recovered. So 500,000 have recovered. Around 6% of 2 million. That'd be like what, like
20,000 plus 30,000.
30,000.
Yeah.
30,000. That's actually considerably low compared to influenza, which is like what the influenza death rate actually. Influenza around 11%. Much more coverage though. A lot more people get the flu, but I mean it still doesn't change the percentage. But I mean, socially that's not the point. Socially, we don't want to look at percentages when it comes to illnesses, because the thing is, we like to look. We should look at the static numbers, like the amount of people dying, and not really the percentage, because we just want less people to die. People think the virus is very aggressive. It's like life-threatening compared to like other things, but not really.
I feel that people are ultimately afraid of it due to just how easily it is able to spread, and as we see it mutates. Before it was only affecting the older generation, but now it's affecting younger people much more often. So with that being said, I feel like that's the biggest thing. It's a virus that is easily spreadable, and that's more dangerous than a virus that's super deadly, in people's opinion. Because Ebola, no one's really that worried about Ebola, even though it was much more deadly, comparatively speaking, to what coronavirus was. But coronavirus spreads a lot more easy, and if it mutates, and when and if it mutates at that, it can now affect a third of the Earth population like it was nothing.
Yeah. It can affect like that many people, but the way the numbers are going, I'm pretty sure this virus is going to, and it's gonna, it's sort of gonna be it's gonna have like a active time period, like a season, and I think it's gonna end this year, probably. Likely either during the summer, possibly, or very, maybe slimly possibly like in the summer, but more likely after summer. It is going to become sort of less relevant. We've already seen sort of a peak of deaths, and some people say we haven't seen the peak yet because of a delayed reaction of the virus.
Yeah, incubation period.
Yeah. But if we, just look at the basic numbers of 25% recovered out of inactive, 2 million, and then 6% have died. That means around 72% are still active with the virus. It hasn't they're alive. They're not dead, and they haven't been recovered yet. If that many people are still active, we don't know where the numbers would go, but I mean, right now it's looking like it's favoring recovery. And I mean, usually naturally that's just the thing. Other than, plagues, that has just killed a majority of people that have gotten it, had a case of it. But this is gonna definitely favor recovery.
What about reinfection?
Reinfection, yes. maybe no, yeah, 70% recovered out of maybe like I don't know, something around 80, maybe even 80% recovery. No, it's probably way more. I'm probably just blowing this out of proportion. I don't even know. But I mean, this virus doesn't seem like it has much, I don't know, hope to thrive. As far as like its life cycle, but obviously economically, socially, it's gonna have a lot of long lasting effects.
Now, I have a question, if you don't mind me asking. If you believe coronavirus is being caused in some way, shape, or form by 5G, so if that's the case, wouldn't it have a more or less infinite time period of incubation? Is that the belief? Because 5G, like you say, is always present.
No, if we use the theory comparing this to like past instances, like with Spanish flu, and the first introduction of radio waves, then no, I don't think so.
Why is that?
Around World War II, they were sonar became a really big thing. Everyone was using it. Submarines, throughout the waters. Just in general, for like sonar detection on the coast and all of that. And there was another illness around that time period. I can't remember what it was, but that was also a weird correlation. So this isn't like a coincidence that we've seen only 2 times. This has been around. There's other instances of this, at least like 4 or 5 times happening in human history with major outbreaks like this.
Aren't they usually around times of war or when like civilization is a lot less, so to speak, advanced in a way? And thinking about war, we mentioned World War II. There's a lot of trench warfare. You feel me? Mm-hmm. Everybody's in a tight knit, close area.
Yeah.
So of course it could have just been a disease that jumps from a cow to a human, and now the allies are now sharing bunkmates with like 20 different people from different states. And that's how it's spreading so quickly. Is that more likely than sonar radiation suddenly now pushed out, or sonar technology is now causing us to develop this illness in these areas? And even if that was the case, it'd be unlikely for us to get over it so quickly because adaptation takes a long time for that to occur.
Yeah. With the common education, I mean, yeah, that is the primary thought. That is how we would think about this. As I said, like 1918, that was like World War I. So I mean, you sort of got like the same thing.
But one of your biggest issues you had when we talked about it the first time on Instagram Live was you said that they were able to diagnose the issue, but they were not able to actually isolate the virus itself.
Yes. Much time has passed since then, and I'm not sure. Probably they maybe isolated something they believe to be the virus. It could be the virus itself, or they may not have perfected the isolation. But an essentially early issue that I found some research on is as in the medical community that was first investigating this so-called virus, they were using an identification test that is severely outdated from like the 80s, where they basically take a piece of genetic material and they amplify it to basically see things better, like the virus and what it's doing. But the thing is that amplification process also amplifies all the other essential molecules, compounds within that sample that every other human being essentially has. So what you're doing is you're saying that the virus which encompasses a certain like area of like genetic material. You're saying that this basically is the virus, but a lot of those other compounds and identifiers are in essentially most humans. So you have a problem of isolating it and really diluting the problem and figuring out what is a proper response. I remember there was one doctor that was talking about his own experience with the virus in a hospital setting, and he was saying they're totally treating this entire thing wrong. When I don't know. He said something about confusing the SARS affliction with like a test made for cancer and things like that. Oh yeah, it looks more like the patients have altitude sickness or something along the lines of that.
But that's how viruses, don't they tend to work, by you hijacking a pre-existing cell.
Yeah.
So if it is truly a virus, like we currently believe it is, it would make sense for it to have a lot of human or components found in different things.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? Because it's essentially just taking a cell and reworking it for its own purpose.
Yeah.
But it would still have those components. To the topic of it being treated like altitude sickness, you're not taking like one doctor's word, which he might be correct. Mm-hmm. We're not taking one doctor's word in one specific scenario to being thousands of other doctors and people who suffer from the virus personally, and saying this is what it felt like for me. So now you have that's just a problem of being a the appeal to an authority sort of situation, or by saying like your word against mine.
Yeah. And another big thing. I don't know much about the topic of artificial like viruses. I'm not saying that coronavirus isn't technically like an artificial virus, but if it was possibly formulated through some artificial means, then really the detection of it compared to a natural virus would be so difficult and intricate and tedious to work out. Really, because an artificial like hijacking of the cell, like for like viral purposes, honestly, I don't know much about how that can be differently identified than a natural virus. So I don't know, that could be a possible thing with the whole theory of like the 5G poisoning cells in the body, and they're excreting this poison, and the poison mutates the cell to become viral, or other like structures, organelles within the cell, like to create like basically like mutated like vesicles and things that can actually become invaders or parts of like a contagion, something like that.
Okay. Aren't vaccines technically artificial viruses to an extent? Would you argue? Would you say that?
It's sort of the crossroads between natural viruses and modern medicine, and honestly figuring out the perfect ratio to put that within someone's body without actually being severe. So I mean, no, you wouldn't say that is an artificial virus, really. That's like, it's just a replicated like portion of like a natural virus, pretty much.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes our interview for today.
Do you want to make a concluding statement?
Sure, yeah. In conclusion, I think that 5G possibly has a severe role in this whole coronavirus outbreak, and humans, everyone freaking out about this pandemic, we might just be the problem and we may not know it. And from technology to identification and the proper way to go about taking care of this whole pandemic, I think it could just possibly all be wrong.
Well, to conclude the interview, I would want to thank you for coming out and talking to us today. We hope to stay in contact with you, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're back in the lab, the pen and a pad. That's what he says, right?
You said we're back in the lab with a pen.
Pen and a pad?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jesse interview.
Yeah. Overall, I feel like it was a very informational type of thing. It offers an alternative perspective on the coronavirus issue.
That's true, to say the least.
Truthfully, I don't agree with some of the points he made. Most of them I feel like can easily be disputed, but he does make some valid points.
One of the points I want to bring up, because I was actually watching the interview, was actually some of the comments about the death rate of the virus, and how he was kind of saying it's pretty low. So there's a projection I wanted to bring up, This is from the UN, so take it or leave it, you know.
Okay.
But it actually says that the annual death rate, like that's the total death rate in the U.S. and globally, has actually not risen, but actually declined. So I just find it interesting that the actual, like, there's this global pandemic, right? And apparently, you know, if you watch CNN or whatever, you think the world's ending, everybody's dying. But the actual death rate of the world, as in how many deaths are happening
Per day.
compared to previous years, compared to 2019, compared to 2018 especially, even go farther than that, it's steadily going down. Still, you'd expect an increase. Like if you looked at the Spanish flu when it happened, there was an incredible increase in the amount of deaths. But with this virus, it is just seemingly not increasing nearly as much. So, or at all, actually. It's stayed the same from 2019, and it's gone down from 2018. They project it to go up, but it hasn't yet. There's no data to represent that.
Granted, let's keep in fact, people do believe that China has suppressed or hidden most of the deaths that occurred from
That's
it.
true.
As well as the fact that we are only in the beginning, we're only in the 4th month of 2020.
Well, yeah, if you're going to bring up China, I mean, that's another thing, too, because if you're considering all of this, like, first of all, Spain, okay, let's talk about Spain for a second. They have predicted, their Center for Disease Control, the government there, has said that over, you know, the majority of their population that has it, they're predicting, they don't actually have the numbers for this, but they've predicted through what they've seen and the trends they've seen, that most of their cases that they're experiencing are asymptomatic to begin with.
Yeah.
Meaning that they don't actually experience any symptoms.
Yeah.
But they haven't tested these people yet. And they won't because the testing kits are on low supply, and they have been for, well, weeks, months now.
Yeah.
Almost. So, but they're predicting that they're asymptomatic.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that, and they're not being tested, so it looks like the case total's larger than what we're seeing in the first place, and the death rate is extremely lower. Now, whether that's because, well, you know, as maybe Jesse might say, this virus doesn't exist, and it's actually a progression of other things, as well as, you know, that could be it. Or, what seems to be the case, and this makes a lot more sense, so you can tell me what you think, but this seems to be the case from what I've seen, is that the people that were doing the initial research on this, I mean, the WHO said it was not transmissible, human, person-to-person contact. The WHO, the World Health Organization, is supposed to be looking after us. They said there's no person-to-person contact transmission, which is obviously untrue, as we know. So they, you know, failed in some case, I believe, because they already did fail. So I think there's plenty of evidence to say that their initial numbers and their analysis
is incorrect.
What would you agree with that? Because I think that's got to be true.
I feel like that's definitely
based
true.
on that.
In all honesty, like you mentioned, there's been a lot of failure from the beginning. Them not trying to cooperate. Other countries that follow the same rules and regulations. It seems as if, in a way, they were saving face for most of it, or just trying to keep the peace instead of actually addressing the issue properly, which will lead to skewed numbers. Because later on down the line, you just can't admit that we lied or we didn't have the required information, because at that point now you're no longer a word authority. You're a bunch of liars. So I do feel like you bring up a very good point. In saying how they could have either intentionally or unintentionally had skewed numbers to begin with, and now later on down the line, everything just looks like
it's
not
not
adding
making
up.
sense. Doesn't add up. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think it's much more likely that a virus that's already apparently affecting mostly people who already have pre-existing conditions, you know, with heart disease and other things, these people are already more likely to die. So when someone gets the virus, I mean, like there's been some ridiculous cases out there. There's been cases of somebody dying from coronavirus. They got hit by a car. They obviously didn't die of the virus. They died from getting hit by a car. And there's been cases of that on the news and things like that. But I'm talking about if this is already targeting people who are experiencing a heart disease or they have immunodeficiencies and they die from this virus, how do you know, and this is something that they don't even care to look at because there's so many cases
Yeah.
worldwide. How do you know if this is because of this virus that they're dying, or because of these pre-existing conditions that they're already makes them susceptible?
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that it's easily these numbers could be flubbed.
Yes.
Easily they could be flubbed. And if you look at even another thing that Jesse was talking about, globally, the legacy news is still saying China has no cases, almost no rising rate of infection, which is, I mean, obviously false. They've got the largest population out of any country in the world, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's ridiculous, and it started there in the first place. So I think rather than a larger conspiracy, and this is just based off what we've seen so far from our interviews that we've conducted so far, I think that it's much more likely that there is incompetence on a human level in this tyrannical communist government where, fear can outweigh what's reasonable in a way. And there's just been a mistake there that they're not going to correct because it's just not, there's no point.
Yeah.
Because they're already in a position of power. They have no reason to
fix it.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel this honestly might just be a twofold situation. Water is a virus, and it might be exacerbating other issues. But I feel so mostly due to lack of proper management and things like that, it is causing people to have flub numbers and things like that as well. So I feel like there is definitely a virus that is affecting some people some way, but it's also being made worse due to incompetence on the part of the government.
I think that's true. It's just, I think whenever you're looking at numbers, you're gonna have to be, more wary.
Yeah,
wary of what's going on, because these countries have flawed ways of
running themselves.
So, like, there's been cases of, looking at symptoms rather than doing doing regular testing, serological, PCR, whatever else it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're just diagnosing these people based off of symptoms, which is obviously ridiculous. So.
Very.
But you got to look at it from a pragmatic standpoint, for sure. So, Jesse, I think he's got some crazy ideas, but I think that they only arise from all the, there's so many things that aren't being told us because there's no reason to, and it's just mistakes.
Yeah.
That are just so blatant that it's just like there's got to be something else. I think your mind goes there naturally, so. We're on our way to interview probably one of the more important interviews we're gonna do. We got a lab employee, and we have an AT&T worker, biggest provider of 5G in the United States. So we're gonna be checking that out. Hopefully they can give us some answers. And personally, I think a lot of this stuff is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So we should be getting some pretty direct answers. Shouldn't be too many questions left unanswered for us. So funny, it's like. I'm recording, sir. So no. Okay, do you have a tripod?
No.
Okay, that's fine. Actually, that's fine. I do have a tripod and I have lights, but I think we'll only need that for Gabby. But we're gonna need the audio. Are you recording me now, Seth?
Yeah. Me too, bro.
This feels like an American movie. You guys seen that?
No.
Okay, I stopped.
Don't watch movies.
We just gotta wait now. Gabby's not really answering.
Gabby's not really answering.
She's not really answering. Did you turn it off? Turn it off.
It's a good point.
Save battery. We are shooting 4K, so.
Yeah. There's actually very little I can do with this phone.
Stop.
They're literally going to freak out of me.
No. Okay.
No.
What do you mean no?
No.
It's okay.
No. I'm going inside.
Wait,
no.
wait.
You
We are here with Gabby Montemayor, a previous lab assistant at the Personalized Medicine Lab at the VA hospital. She dealt with AIDS and HIV research. So Gabby, what can you tell us about the polymerase chain reaction and how it works in relation to viruses?
So, polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, is a method of essentially figuring out or like genotyping for a specific trait or a specific allele that's present in your genome. It can be used in a variety of different ways, but at least in my lab, what we did is we would take samples from this military cohort who had been infected with HIV, and then we would use the PCR process to kind of genotype them and tell like which polymorphisms are they positive for, like which mutations in their genome do they express. And we specifically looked for single nucleotide polymorphisms, which would be a polymorphism on a single nucleotide of your genome and not like a large strand of a gene. It'd just be one like base pair that was mutated. So we would test for different single nucleotide polymorphisms, and we would find associations between polymorphisms and like disease progression in people who were positive with HIV, and of course progression would be HIV to AIDS. So once we would find a polymorphism that we wanted to test further, because in a different study it had been found to be associated with like immune function, so we would take that polymorphism and we would test for the presence of it in this cohort of HIV positive patients, and then we would perform statistical analysis to see if any presence of a polymorphism was significantly associated with a certain trait of how somebody progresses from HIV to AIDS.
Okay, so basically you use the polymerase chain reaction test, the real time. Was it real time or is it?
Yeah, it was quantitative real time polymerase chain reaction.
Okay, quantitative real time. Okay, so when you use that, from what I understand, like you said, it sort of it makes more copies almost.
Yes. So PCR
of whatever.
Yeah. So the basic process, PCR uses a DNA polymerase enzyme, most frequently Taq polymerase, and then it uses different fluorescent dyes or probes and primers to identify what the start and the stop region of what area you want to duplicate on the DNA region is. And then we'd also use, so essentially in PCR what would happen is you'd put it into this machine, and the process takes a few hours, but it uses like thermal cycles or heat cycles to amplify the DNA. So the enzyme that you put in the machine is activated by heat. It's most active. I mean, it depends on what enzyme you use, but the one that we used in our lab was most active at around 70 degrees. So we would use, there'd be like annealing and then denaturation of the DNA strand, so it would separate, the two strands would separate, and then they'd re-anneal, and but while they were separated, the polymerase, the enzyme would come through the DNA chain and basically replicate it like it would in a normal process, except we'd use heat to manipulate that process, and it would occur over and over and over again. And of course it depends on how long you run the machine, but for our purposes, I believe we replicated the DNA to where there was about millions or billions of strands at a time whenever the process was done.
Okay, and could that system of making the many strands and everything for identifying, could it be used to identify a virus? I mean, such as HIV?
Okay, so yes, PCR could be used to test for a viral infection, and that's because there is viral DNA that is there's traces of viral DNA whenever you're infected with a virus, and of course PCR could pick up on that if you were to test for a viral infection.
And how would that be? How would they find the infection? How would they find the virus? How would they be able to tell?
So, of course, we didn't do this in my lab, so I don't have experience with this, but theoretically you would find you would genotype somebody's DNA sequence, and then you'd find like irregularities, or you'd find essentially like you'd know the viral genome, and then you'd kind of look for it in like you look for it in like trace amounts, and you'd be like, okay, well, does this person have this DNA present in their body?
So
Essentially,
you have to have the sequence of the virus's genome to in order to identify using the PCR test.
I'm assuming, yes.
So, with that being said, you basically you need to have a genotype. In a study, I'm not sure if you're aware, for the Center for Disease Control of Korea, actually put in. They claimed to have sequenced the genome of the virus, of coronavirus or COVID-19, as the WHO named it. They actually call it COV2. But they've claimed to have sequenced that the genome for the virus. So if they were to use that method to find if you were positive for COVID-19, for coronavirus, would that be very expensive, or how exactly, how much resources does this take to actually go through that process?
Well, in my experience, whenever we did PCR in my lab, of course we had to use fluorescent dyes and probes and primers to indicate where you'd want the enzyme to start and stop replicating, like I mentioned earlier. And whenever we ordered these fluorescent dyes, and of course our lab didn't make the dyes at, like, I guess in the lab, but we would order it from a separate company, and that was probably some of the most expensive material that we got. We called it an assay, and then it contained the probes and primers and then a few other things. I believe it also contained the nucleotide bases, just like, building blocks essentially for the new DNA strands that you wanted to replicate. But that was the most expensive component of our research. And of course, you'd get in trouble if you spilled it or if you wasted a sample because it was expensive and you didn't get a lot of it. But I mean, at the same time, for every run of that machine, you only use like a few microliters of the assay. So, I mean, it is expensive, and I'm sure it's even more expensive to develop probes and primers and fluorescent dyes for new segments of DNA that you wanted to replicate. But then again, I don't work for the companies that do that, but that's most likely the most expensive component of PCR.
Okay. So, with that being said, with PCR and everything, their second method that they've identified that seemed to be working for identifying the coronavirus, and telling if you're positive for it or not, is through serological testing, which is basically they're get a sample of your fluids and testing for the antibodies that your body produces to basically stave off the virus. So can you tell us about how that's used in your field? Is that something that's reliable for testing for a virus?
Yes, so serological testing, in my opinion, is like probably the most common way that people test for a virus. But there's some, of course, pros and cons to that, and that's probably the reason why they've been steering more towards PCR. But anyway, so serological testing, like you said, just tests for the amount of antibodies in your body. And they also use that method to test for HIV in most cases. And this would require a blood sample rather than like a cheek swab. So it's a little bit more invasive. And also the person...
Sir, you're saying serological testing would require a blood sample?
Yeah, it's more invasive.
Okay, that's interesting, because they're saying that they're able to do it just by getting some of your phlegm from your lungs. They stick like a thing in there and get a sample.
Oh, well, I guess maybe they are able to do that now, but like traditionally you do serological testing by blood sample. That's at least the traditional method. I'm sure you could do it a different way, but that's the way I'm familiar with.
Okay.
And so it is more invasive, even if they do get like swabs from your lungs, it's still invasive. So that's one thing.
Invasive meaning?
Invasive meaning like invasive to the patient who's getting tested. It's more invasive than just getting your cheek swabbed.
Oh, okay. Which is all you need for
PCR.
For PCR tests.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, okay, yeah, keep going.
So, And then another thing about serological testing that I wanted to mention is that so your body actually has to have antibodies build up towards the infection, and that takes a little while in most cases. I mean, it doesn't take eternity, but it takes long enough for you to get sick. Whereas in PCR, even if you're asymptomatic, even if you're not really that sick, or even if your body hasn't been able to build up that much antibodies for the infection, PCR will still be able to tell you, you know, you're infected. It doesn't matter how long you've been infected, or it doesn't matter how sick you get. It doesn't matter your body's response to the virus. It's still traceable because the viral DNA will always be there. As opposed to antibodies, you know, some people produce more, some people produce less, some people, their immune system has a delayed reaction. You know, you have to be infected for a little bit before there's, you know, a buildup of antibodies.
Okay. The legacy media also claimed that the antibodies, as opposed to in PCR testing, antibodies can be found in your body even after you've already recovered. Is that true?
Yeah, that's kind of like the point of a vaccine, right? It's like you haven't really been infected, but even after you get that vaccine and it's been a while, you still have antibodies that have developed a way to react to that infection if you do happen to get it.
Like a vaccine, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. That's all the questions I have for you. I appreciate your insight, and I guess we're going to be going on to the next interview. Okay, so I'm very frustrated right now. I just got off the phone with our anonymous interviewer, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a little wrap-up of how the interview went. Overall, it was pretty, you know, there's some claims made, but it was generally just information that's, I guess, publicly available. But he just kind of put a lot of the pieces together for me. And that's why I'm not really worried about not having the evidence, because it just makes sense. It's a logical thing. And you can kind of logic it out to figure out that it's true. One of the main things I ask is, you know, what he does and everything. He's a contractor for, and the main thing he does is he gets orders of where to go and everything like that. He told me pretty much 5G was going everywhere. That was originally what he had told me. Basically, urban centers, so cities and things like that. He said that pretty much everywhere you're going to go, there's going to be a little bit of, like a little box on the side of a telephone pole or something, and that's where you're going to have your 5G router, basically. It's because they're not putting a lot of power behind these signals, so the waves are at a higher frequency. He said around 60 gigahertz, and the thing is, he said that any wave can be dangerous, but it all has to do with the amount of power behind them. So he explained the FCC would never allow for things like that because they're dangerous, and there'd be no real reason for them to use something dangerous anyway as a company. While he said it's going everywhere in urban centers, it's not going to be going likely to, you know, the rural parts of America, the world really. Just because there's satellites doesn't mean that they're going to be, you know, it's not going to spread more. 5G is not going to be all over the world. It's not going to expand coverage of the internet in general. It's only going to make the network where there's already internet stronger and more capable of heavy traffic, things like that, simply because of the onset. There's, you know, new challenges we're facing. There's going to be new technologies that are going to connect to the Wi-Fi. Everything's, you know, one way or another going to be connected to the internet. I asked him about if there's any dangers of 5G, and he was talking about the social dangers, which was interesting to me. I was just saying that there's a lot of personal information just going to be available almost always. If, you know, you're going to have a smart home, smart fridge, everything. I mean, everything from the thermostat to the refrigerator already is connected to the internet. It's just 5G's mainly there just to handle that traffic. So it's not actually going to be expanding. They're trying to roll it out very fast in areas where there's already coverage, simply because it's beneficial for their company. So they're trying to get the best coverage, trying to get the best network for their customers, pretty much. He did also talk about how it could be dangerous if there's enough power, but he also said that everything with any wave can be dangerous with enough power behind it. He told me to think of it like your Wi-Fi in your house. So the way 5G works, it's sort of like your Wi-Fi. You've got your modem, whatever that's got the Wi-Fi signal, but you leave your house, you walk 100 feet away, you're not going to get that signal. You're not going to be able to use the Wi-Fi. You're not going to be able to use it because there's not enough power behind that Wi-Fi signal. You go down the road, you have another one there, your neighbors or whatever, so you can connect to that one, but you can't connect to your old one. So that's pretty much the way 5G is going to work. Since it's a higher frequency, which has to do with wavelength, yes. But what I meant was, when it's a higher frequency, there's going to be less power behind it. So it's going to be spread out everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. And that's why you're seeing construction of it across the U.S. and across the world, pretty much. So yeah, there's no real dangers. It's really, what he said was that it's not as dangerous as, it's just as dangerous, or just as potentially dangerous as your Wi-Fi signal in your house, or as any other wave, really. The only reason microwaves cook things is because there's enough of them and enough power contributing to that system enclosed in the microwave with a lot of power behind that wave in an enclosed space. So small space, lots of power, a higher frequency wave, and in a small space, so there's more density there, like an incredible amount of density to where it heats up food. And that's about it. Yeah, I hate that it couldn't be put on camera, but just been working on this thing day in, day out. I've devoted a lot of time to it now. I think you can really get a bigger picture when you just look at everything that everybody's got, all the information that they as individuals have, and you can put it together into just like a story, and it really makes some things come clear. So I think that this story is going to come out well, and I think it's going to inform the public. I think they're going to know what to think, how to react to this situation, to this crisis, and I just hope that we can get ahead of the legacy news. They're already talking about China, and how it's their fault and everything. So I don't know, but we'll just have to see.
Alright, do something interesting, dude. You may or may not be in focus.
Well, we're on day 3. We got a couple things to cover. This is the main day. We gotta get everything done today, because we only have James for today.
Turn left onto Walson Road.
We're going to see Seth.
Continue on Walson Road for 3/4 of
He's
a mile.
gotta be our crew. Down, it's okay. You can take a shower. Can you drive over to my house?
Yeah, I guess I can.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse.
So what, when you play a still 5?
Yeah, if you want, you can still do 5. You can do it earlier if you want, but yeah, 5, I guess.
Alright.
Seth right now.
Sayonara, King.
So Skyeler, what is going on?
Well, Seth actually canceled on me for the first time ever. So it's coming out of his paycheck. All right, rolling. Wait, hold on. No. I gotta do the audio. I'm not in your shot, right, Ashton?
No.
All right, I'm gonna do my clap. Now you say you do your clap.
No, you gotta do a clap.
Go pick up.
Is that good for you, Ashton? Was that in your shot?
It was a little bit. It works, I think.
I hope so.
All right, we good?
All right, action.
Hello, welcome back. I'm here with Charlie Jackson, who plans on starting his own company referred to as Visitor Safe. Now, Charlie, what are your company's plans to help handle and deal with this virus?
Well, the whole reason that I'm trying to start this company called visitorsafe.org is I see a real need for the economy to reboot in a powerful and positive way. And I see right now that there's nothing out there that is really assuring the general public that they're safe when they go out to different facilities.
Okay.
And, there's different things out there that people are trying to do, different companies and stuff, but there's no one really monitoring them or giving them any guidance of how to handle this virus or many other things that may come down the future. And the world is changing as we know it, right in front of our eyes.
Very true.
And, there's no, if you remember, you're probably too young, but, who would have ever thought before 9/11 or after 9/11 that if someone told you that you would have to take off your shoes to get on an airplane and be searched down, you would have laughed, said never happened. Well, that's the standard procedure now because of what happened in 9/11. There's just, the world is changing as we know it, and I felt like there needs to be something out there that would help make us feel safe, and especially for businesses like my own, because I own a sign printing and promotional products company. Correct. And I deal with businesses every day, and they're all, it's like asking, we talk, and it's like, how are we going to open back up? How's it going to be done? How can we be safe? How can we make our customers feel safer? And I happen to be talking to a cleaning company called Argus Cleaning, and they do disinfecting and different things of that nature. And make a long story short, I found out that there was this product out there combined with other products that NASA has been using in their space shuttle that actually provides cleaning, or how do I say this?
Sanitization.
It continues to clean even after it's applied to a surface.
Oh.
So, and it's activated by light. So I did a little more checking into this, and there's stuff out there that's hospital grade. Hospitals use it. They're being used currently in schools and different things of that nature, where you spray a surface of stuff, and it not only cleans like Ajax or 409 that you have now, but it continues fighting bacteria and different things for up to 90, even 120 days after it's been applied. So, but however, it has to be applied properly and professionally. So not just anybody can do it, or get their handle on this. So I'm thinking, hey, there's a lot of companies out there that says, oh, we'll clean this or we'll do that and you're good. Well, there's nobody, checking on them to making sure that they're doing things properly, that these products that are all of a sudden out there are being applied properly. So my idea was basically, we need to regulate them, or at least not maybe regulate them, but we need to, put some solid techniques in place, whether to, how to apply these chemicals. So I know when I go into a place, for example, my local restaurant, that, these chemicals or things that they're using is going to keep me safer because, everybody cleans their place, but they're not using these products.
Yeah.
And these products are relatively new, and they need to be, I'm not sure, not monitored, but they need to have some standards.
Yeah.
So and every restaurant has to have some, I'm sure they have standards now of how they clean, but now we're going to come out with a company or like Visitor Safe, and they're going to follow certain guidelines to be able to be a member of the organization. So, and there's other things as well. Not only do we want to do the cleaning, but as you well know, there's shooters out there as well. So, there's tornadoes, there's different things. So there should be different protocols for whoever they are or how they handle that situation, and they should be written down within that restaurant or business or whatever. So if, for example, I said all they have to have is basically a little logo on their front door when you walk in, kind of like the Visa MasterCard. If it doesn't have the visitorsafe.org logo on there, then this facility doesn't have any type of guidelines or anything of this nature. They're just cleaning the old school well. They're not taking any new techniques. They're not, I'm not as safe there. Yeah. So, and it really needs to be I think a more of a government type of organization or non-profit. I don't think anybody would really profit from this, except for maybe the companies that made the products and stuff. But there's going to be 100 cleaning agencies out there saying, "Oh, we do this." Well, who's monitoring them? Who's monitoring these restaurants that are saying that they're safe, but are they applying the stuff properly? So my company had the idea of, like, I remember in the old days where we had, of course, because I'm old, we had things like good housekeeping seal of approval, or we had the real seal. You knew it had 100% milk it was real milk. Yeah. And people check to make sure these products and services have that. Well, so with the safe.org, we would go in and make sure that they're following these guidelines, and only then would they be allowed to put that seal on there. And you as a consumer, you're going to know when you walk into the place,
that's up to standard.
Yeah, they have the standard here, and you're going to feel a lot more safe when you're going into that place. And it's no one can guarantee complete safety and stuff, but at least that this establishment is trying to do something.
Yeah, and they're going the extra step in these trying times.
So that's the whole idea about visitorsafe.org. And literally in the last couple of weeks, we're trying to come up with the policies and procedures and the different things of that nature. So it's a very, unfortunately, to ramp something up this fast takes
a
while.
Yeah. That goes on to my next question for you. How are you planning to implement this visitor safe ideology and seals and things like that?
Well, obviously, I've done a little bit of research of myself by talking to different customers that I deal with and asking questions about, just, hey, what if there was something out there that did this? And the excitement level is pretty high, because they're like going, yeah, we would love to have something out there that's saying, yeah, this place is safe. I've contacted the governor of Texas. I've contacted some different investment people. As of yet, I have not heard anything back from them. There's a process. Some Joe Blow like me can't just walk in and say, hey, Ted Cruz or the governor or whoever, I'm trying to get,
through to them with the proper channel.
Right, because I don't want to run a company. I have a company.
Yeah.
But, I think I have a good enough idea where there's smarter people out there than me that can make this work.
Okay.
Because I think it's an awesome idea. And I think it'll make everybody feel a lot safer. And we're all worried about the company or the economy restarting. This is a perfect way to make people feel safer when they go out there.
Yeah.
And not only does it handle the virus situation, but you can add like the gun safety rules, or tornadoes, or other different things that everybody should have some kind of a plan for.
Yeah. Are you expecting any form of pushback from government or any type of local authorities for this idea?
I don't know. I honestly, I'm not an anti-government person, but I'm not. The more government is not in my life, the better. Yeah. But at the same token, sometimes, most things have been developed for trying to help things. Yeah. Doesn't mean always that things turn out right when someone's trying to help something. As you know, government. Most of them can't. Our governments, they can't. There's a political now that the one right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, or they don't like this guy or this guy is. I mean, this is not a political thing. The only pushback I would see is, they can't find anything that for self-interest.
Yeah.
And which is a shame, because there shouldn't be any self-interest. We're all on the same planet.
Yeah.
And the same team, exactly.
Well, you mentioned earlier about this feeling a way to help the economy. Do you think visitor safe will be a push we need to get our economy back to their perfect standing?
It's not just, there's going to be many things that need to happen for our economy to get going, obviously. But this is just one little thing that, I know if I walk into a restaurant or my business, if I see that logo on there and I know exactly what it is or what it means, it's going to take some education, obviously, which is why I think it needs to be implemented through the government, because they're the ones that have the money or that can put it out there. Me as a guy, unless I went to someone like Mark Cuban, which by the way I contacted, he hadn't returned me my messages either. But it takes money to do marketing and different things of that nature.
Yeah.
Even in today's world where things are readily available, but it's got to be endorsed. It's got to have some
approval.
Right, the EPA needs to approve it. Which these products are, by the way, approved by the EPA, but I mean, they just need to be brought down to simple terms where people can understand. It's like, these guys are going, like you said, above and beyond to try to make me feel better. So yeah, I think it would help the economy, or at least I would feel better walking into my favorite restaurant if they had this on their door, as opposed to someone who didn't. What are they doing to help me?
Nothing. You feel like they
Right.
have it. Okay. So that sounds like an amazing idea to me. What is your plan to get in contact with these government officials so you can get their seal of approval?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I know that I've been making phone calls. I've even gone to my local area, like Live Oak here. We donated some 5-step rule signs from our company. I'm just trying to get who's the right person. Who do you talk to? I'm just not sure. I mean, I've tried talking to the mayor. It's like everybody's busy right now.
Yeah.
No one wants to make an appointment. So it's like, you're put off on the back burner, and this may not even be a good idea. I may be feeling like it's the only good idea, but yet every person that I have talked to
Feels like it is.
feels like it's something of importance.
Yeah.
And they all feel the same way. That yes, they would like to have some kind of reassurance that, hey, and even my local restaurant that I talked to, they proudly put it on their door. Let's do that. Let's put it on our door so they'll know that we're doing something extra special. But talking to the local people, I mean, literally, Ted Cruz, Governor Abbott, President
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, even Donald Trump. Hey, if you see this, talk to me. I feel like I'm just some lowly guy here that has a great idea, and I'm not looking for anything in return. I just want to make sure that our economy starts going again.
Yeah, and we feel safe in public.
And feel safe in public. And I think that this little thing is a good way to do it, and affordably, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, sir.
I mean, I know the sticker costs maybe $1 to make. I mean, how simple is that?
Yeah, what's the buck when you have all these people coming in now?
Right.
Have fun. How'd it go? How was the interview?
I felt like it was pretty well. You have an amazing idea.
Well,
You have an amazing
my
idea in
dad
public.
was good.
Yeah, you're Charlie.
Yeah.
you saying like your dad destroyed my brain.
Yeah.
But the interview with Charlie Jackson went pretty well. He has an amazing idea, if you ask me. And ultimately, I think that if it gets the attention we feel like we'll get,
It's a
we might
big
be onto
government
something.
thing.
Yeah. I feel quite proud
We'll
of it.
see. I think it should stay nonprofit, stay private.
Most definitely should stay non-profit, because the moment you involve profit in it, you
Well-
don't have to worry about the people enough.
That's true. There's profit involved in it anyway, though.
Oh yeah, but that's
Because, he's talked to me about it. I think if it was non-profit, privately run, it'd be better than if it was like government run or anything, because first of all, it's specifically going with businesses, and like he said, it's really cheap what they're doing anyway.
Yeah.
So I think they could probably just handle it on a small level.
Who do you think should be the private owner if it were to get caught up?
I'm actually supposed to be the CCO,
Oh.
apparently, which is kind of funny, but I don't know. No, I don't think I'm gonna be that involved in it.
I don't think you should be.
That's funny. Why do you say that?
Just because I feel we need somebody more in the
Experience,
field,
yeah.
or at least with more money, things like that.
I feel like he could do it, but I don't know how. He said, I don't know. Did he say? He didn't say he wanted to, right?
Yeah, he already have his own business.
Yeah.
That's what he said. That's enough to run it. So we'll find out. I feel like we'll definitely get there.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been a lot of information to digest for sure. It's been a long process.
An extremely long process
for us. I think that a couple things that what we can learn from Gabby's interview really is that this PCR test could definitely be used to identify a virus if you had the genome sequenced.
The only problem
is
that if you can't get it after they've cured, not after they've
That's
recovered from the
true.
virus.
In that case, you'd have to use serological testing, which can be flawed, but anything can be, of course.
Truthfully.
But the main thing is that they would have to have the genome sequenced if they were going to use PCR. There's like a couple things that you'd have to have. And there's a study in Korea I've been referencing where they've claimed to have
found it.
Yeah, basically they've claimed to have isolated the virus and sequenced the genome. Mm-hmm. And basically, if that's the case, if the Korean Center for Disease Control is telling the truth, if this experiment went through, and this seems to be true, the coronavirus, it shares 70% of its DNA, with SARS, and about 50% with MERS. Basically, it seems to correlate that this is just a extension of those.
Yeah.
And those have been much more deadly. The MERS and SARS were more deadly
On their own.
but they were less transmissible than this coronavirus, COVID-19, because those are also coronaviruses.
Yes.
Those were both coronaviruses, as their structure is the same. With our anonymous interviewer, our
AT&T employee.
Yeah, AT&T employee, contractor actually. And what he said really is going to be pretty much the only other thing other than Jesse's word we could go off of for
A first-hand account.
yeah, what they're planning, other than what these companies are saying themselves, which they've said that it can be dangerous under certain circumstances. With a great amount of power behind a 5G tower, it could cause problems.
But as of right now, they haven't been met for that requirements.
They're not planning to do anything more powerful than what's already been
Dispersed.
pretty much present, and they're putting it everywhere, which he admitted. He said they're putting it everywhere. They've been putting it everywhere. But the thing is, it's not high. There's not enough power behind those
towers that are out there to do any real damage.
It's possible, but they haven't done any plans, and I think that basically from that you can sort of see that I don't believe that this is being caused by 5G, because simply if this has already existed beforehand, which the technology's been around for a little while now, and it's just it's been talked about over and over, and there's so many other examples I could name of people claiming 5G to be dangerous before, claiming it to be dangerous now. There's many things just sort of surrounding that. So I don't believe there's enough substantial evidence.
Yes.
Maybe in the future there'll be more, but I don't think as of right now you could say that. So
yeah, I agree. But Jesse did make tons of points within his thing. He mentioned how essentially over time periods you have had instances where new technology is introduced, and with the new technology you do have viruses that are introduced to the people like that. And while it is not that convincing, which I pointed out in the meeting, he does definitely make you think about it and consider, well, maybe there is something to it. But ultimately, I feel like he means well when he said those things. He just noticed the fact that what was being said by the World Health Organization and our other ways of getting medical information wasn't adding up to what we're actually seeing in real life. So he was just convinced that there was something else behind it.
I think that we both, as me and James, we'd love to say that there's no issue, that this is all just some big, conspiracy and there's nothing that can be done about it. I think that the truth is that there are things that can be done about it, such as the program my father's starting, general health practices that are, good for combating any virus. I think there are things that can be done. I don't think it's hopeless, and as much as we'd love to say that, it's unstoppable and that it's just this big conspiracy, there's a real danger out there that maybe is overblown, maybe is flubbed, but still present, and I just think it's a lot less
severe than they're making it out to be.
So, yeah.
But at the end of the day, regardless of what we feel or else what's said, the truth is out there. But I feel this concludes the Rhodes Jackson project, don't you think?
I think it concludes our project here. We've done all we can to get this information with the resources we have.
Yes. The rest is up to you guys and everybody else out there.
That's true.
Masks, gloves, temperature checks to get into any building. Wear the mask in
I'm gonna put this up.
Half the workforce should
Where's it at? Was it right here? Was it
work
right here?
remotely from home.
Yeah, that's fine.
More social distancing in every New York City building. Also, let's think about reopening. See that? That's Yankee Stadium. Now, Yankees are...
Jesse's retarded, dude. Retarded. I don't know what the f***'s wrong with him.
That's
5G, are you kidding me?
Got his own ideas. But at the end of the day, you gotta respect it. That's what makes America so great.
That is what makes America so great. Make America...
Are you recording?
That went right to my drink. Fuck.
Okay.
It's fun.
We got more in the house.
I ain't gonna sip it. It's good. I'm gonna look at it now.
That's so gross, yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
I can't tell if it's ice or...
Oh no, you can definitely tell where it's at in here.
You got the coronavirus, 5G.
Yeah, bro. The 5G virus.
But you know what? What you said was right. Free speech, man. You got to give these people a platform. So you can, if they're wrong, then you can...
Tell them they're wrong.
Yeah, you can tell them they're wrong. If there's no platform for them, what are you going to do? There's nothing to do.
Kill them.
Well, yeah, that's an option, but, you can't kill all of them.
Yeah, you're right. For every Jesse we got, for every Jesse we got another Hitler. And for every Hitler we got 10 Jessies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can't kill them all. Can't kill them all. No.
It's important. Information's out there. That's why you can have, Nazis on YouTube. If Nazis were on YouTube, then we could just, prove them wrong all the time. It's like why there's communists on YouTube, and they're proved wrong all the time, so it's good, man.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, next time, we got the Earn It Act.
Me and Jesse already started on that, too. We thought our own little cyber investigation, Jesse. We can record that, honestly. We can record that. So we haven't done that thing we need to do yet, technically. So we could.
A million pictures.
All right, good. But no, Jesse, we haven't recorded ourselves calling those people up yet.
Oh yeah.
So we can just do that again and be like, hey.
Government, man. It's a fad. It's over.
You said it's a fad.
It's like a fad. I don't know. That's it, though.
We did? We done?
I guess, yeah.
Right,
We
bro.
are done, yeah.
I'm gonna pour this out.
Pour that out. It's just gross.